Joining us now, Arise analyst Dr. Sam Amadi and Mahmoud Jega with us right here in the studio. Thank you both of you gentlemen for joining us on Newsnight. Let me start with you, Madam Jega. Where do we even start from? Should we just narrow it down to Delta State, where the governor of an opposition party believes that aligning with the center is the way forward? He's saying, well, the former governor of the state, who also is the vice presidential candidate of the PDP in the 2023 election, says there is a need to align with the center so that you can be part of the goodies.
It's a very strange argument. Okay, anybody will want goodies to come to his state, but Delta is not exactly impoverished because this is the state that receives the highest allocation of any state in the federation account when you factor in the 13% derivation. Delta receives much more than any other state. So if there are some states that are much less endowed in financial terms and they are still in the opposition camps and they didn't say they are moving in order to get, in any case, what goodies are you talking about? The formula for federation account allocation is fixed in law, and other things, quite all right. The presidency may have the privilege of doing a sleight of hand, but not really very much, because whatever you want to do in terms of major projects in the country, you have to look at the balance, and each region will have to get something. So I really don't know whether that is a very, very tangible argument.
And I wonder if Dr. Sam Amadi feels the same way. Do we have Dr. Sam Amadi?
Sure. I can,
Yeah, so do you think that it's a tenable argument put forward by Mr. Ifeanyi Okowa when he says the defection is not personal, but it's for, goodwill from Abuja to connect and benefit from the goodies in Abuja, basically rephrasing what he said? Is that a tenable justification? And what does that say about our federalism and our democracy?
Yes, it's correct. It's about connecting to Abuja for the benefit of Okowa. Simple and short. Look, we might disagree with Tenable in many ways, but I don't think this government is guilty of overt constitutional discrimination against states. So it's not a government that has, for example, stopped states' allocation because they are on the other camp. The Tenable government has not tried to perhaps deny states of what they ought to do. And by the way, this is a state that has Keyamo, Festus Keyamo, Minister of Aviation there. It has top-ranking APC persons. We've seen when Nedumoko, crossover, because of Okowa, basically. The point is that Okowa wanted to run for Senate and they couldn't stay with Okowa and PDP. So this argument is self-serving. Again, if you watch the body language of Okowa, this is like stricken. There's a guy that was like, disappearing there. I didn't see any gravitas. And I think probably struggling with his conscience, probably clear. I mean, a few weeks or months ago, there was a massive case against him in EFCC. He was docked. And many analysis is that perhaps this is to escape that possible nightmare. For the governor, you can hear what a resident said. He says, it's not fair for you to, because somebody put in power, you have to go all the way. So look, I see that 3 levels. At the first level, perhaps some element of a general malaise of Nigerian politicians, that what we saw in PDP era, some people jump, has now become, it has moved from, Kamak says, from first time a farce to now a tragedy. It's now a tragedy when highly formidable. Look, the governor of the Delta State, doing averagely well from some reports, is not in real danger of being, if votes count, really, taken out if you focus on serving the people. Not at all. This is a state that P2B won handily against Tenable and against Atiku. So it's not like, look, this is Tenable wave is going to sweep that place. That's not true. So two things are at play here. Individual interests, like the kind of Okowa, are very clear. And for the governor, maybe perhaps fear that with what has happened since 2023, with the Edo's election, there's now a certain calculation clear that this INEC under APC, we've not had an INEC like that. And so people are not even thinking about any competitive election. And so the notion here is slam dunk. You just have to be with these guys so they don't openly rig you out. We saw cases where INEC will declare results far different from the results that were uploaded. They use result sheets that are now verifiably fake, according to the initiative Nigeria that went to South Africa lab and showed it. This is the point. Personal interest here, one. Two, fatalism about competitive election. And so we're going to 2027 with this, shadow hanging over the prospect that, look, everybody's going to say, if you want to be in power, then you have to decamp. Otherwise, INEC would, hurt you badly.
Madam Jega, let me bring this back to you. We heard from the APC National Chairman, Ganduje, that 2027 is a done deal. I wonder what you make of that. And where do the people, where do you leave the voters? Is this a betrayal when, a politician leaves the party on whose platform the voter went to the ballot and voted for them? Should there be consequences for this jumping of ship?
There were some cases that were decided in the judiciary some years ago in this republic, which suggests that I'm not a lawyer, but if I think about the case of 2007 in Rivers State, when Rotimi Amechi did not even contest the governorship election, but the Supreme Court removed the governor, Celestine Omehia, and said it was Amechi who won the APC, the PDP nomination. Therefore, it is PDP that won the election, so he is the governor. That was a very, very telling case, which suggests that it is parties that people... So therefore, morally and probably legally, if you abandon the party on whose platform you got elected, then you should probably abandon the mandate and seek another mandate under the new party. I think morally that is a very strong case. In any case, just like Dr. Amadi said, one is at pains to see what was the reason for the massive defection of the governor and PDP governors, because Delta is one of the most solidly PDP states and has been so since the beginning of this republic.
Since 1999.
If you count out the Peter Obi presidential election victory there in the last election, no party has ever won any election in Delta State apart from PDP, and there is no indication now that they are in any trouble. And if that is the case, then people begin to look for a motive outside politics. And the most obvious one probably was that Dr. Okowa was arrested by EFCC late last year and was being charged. And really now the challenge is to see if the EFCC will continue with that prosecution, because if they don't, then people will say, okay, so this was the reason for the defection, and there was a deal to drop the investigation and prosecution because he has now moved to APC.
That is as it pertains to Ifeanyi Okowa, and that's an important point that you raised. But the bigger picture for Nigeria's democracy, what exactly does it mean if, opposition is being muffled or being tightened in a way that, they're almost non-existent?
It is a terrible development for Nigeria's democracy, but then on the other hand, you don't really blame. It is possible the presidency and the ruling party may be doing all kinds of machinations underground, but in the end, it is the opposition people that you must blame for jumping into the ruling party at the earliest opportunity. But there is no reason, I think, to despair from the point of view of democratic tradition in Nigeria, because if the ruling party itself becomes full of people, the most likely thing that will happen is the conflict, which we see all over Nigeria, between natives and the settlers. In every Nigerian community, you have this problem. So those who entered newly are going to be seen by those who are there as settlers, that they are the natives. And this kind of problem will come to the fore by the time you approach the party primaries. And if you don't handle it well, then parts of the ruling party itself can break out, like happened in 2013. The NPDP people, if you remember, up to 7 governors were rebelling, 5 ended up leaving and joining the opposition. That kind of thing happens when you have too many ambitious people under the same umbrella.
Interesting. Fingers crossed. But what we saw today did seem like a unity. We even saw Senator Oborevwori Agege, who has been very reluctant and against, these defections, even joining them on stage to welcome them. But let me bring you back into the conversation, Dr. Amadi. You talked about the competitive nature of our democracy. At what point does political consolidation become unhealthy for electoral integrity? And you saw our correspondents speak to people on the streets of Delta today. They felt pained and betrayed. I wonder what you think about that. I mean, if the people are speaking in that way, in that manner, are there any consequences for electoral confidence, voter turnout, electoral integrity in 2027? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think so far, if you look at 2023, actually, in spite of the wave of obedience and all that, it was a very low turnout election. So we're going to have more. And again, look at the combination of these storms. First, you have political parties that are now basically flattened and flattening every day. The PDP has been holding sway or held sway for a long time. It's now, in some measure, a subsidiary of APC. And then you have the Labour Party that's now disorganized. You have other parties. Maybe the mutation, dialectics, might throw up SDP or New Labour or whatever platform. But it speaks to the lack of the organizing principle of Nigeria politics is now very deficient and defective. In the sense that we can't even have organizations to conduct politics. And bureaucracy organization is the heart of development. So the parties are neither organized to aggregate interests, put them in ordered competition. So what's the point of our party? The parties that are a structured coalition of interests, ideas, values about the public good, competing and contesting. Sometimes they mutate, change direction. But here, you have bankruptcy of ideas, bankruptcy of value. The second point really is that you can't talk about electoral democracy, and that's why Nigeria has been classified officially as electoral autocracy after 2023, meaning that you're going to have elections, but it's actually autocracy. So we're going to get back to perhaps Russian style or Mugabe style. The difference here is, no matter what you say, not Mugabe, rather, about Rwanda, no matter what you say against the strong man there, the Uganda man, you can see that they have some ideology. It might be bankrupt. Some notion of the state and nation building. It might be defective, but here, there's no notion. Okay, by the way, when people are falling to PDP, look at that area of people there. Look at Ganduje, look at Okowa, look at Professor Skemo. Is there any common idea or set of ideas keeping these people together? So if tomorrow other governors fall in, this is not a one-party state with all its deficiencies, at least that is organized and organic and able to drive some version of development. This is basically banditry writ large. Everybody is in there to extract, to take. I come with an election, I have to join them. And the last thing, the third point about this is that, look, the notion, what is driving this convergence is the idea that elections are not free and fair and cannot be. That's a fatalism now. And I talk about INEC all the time. I say, look, those who want to fight for Nigeria shouldn't fight APC or Tenable or anybody. Fight INEC. We've seen continuing degeneracy in terms of basic administrative work. For example, your law says that if voters' materials are not, the serial numbers are not captured in prescribed forms you prescribe, You should announce it. You announce the result, you upload a different result, and you are gung-ho about it. And the court says, no, slam dunk, blah, blah, blah. Maybe the petitioner should have brought computer, should have worked it, should have, the court subpoenas INEC to come, INEC comes and we can't operate our system. The court says, okay, because INEC can't operate it, though a PDP, it's your fault. You should have operated it. This convergence of the judicial capitulation, the INEC's is managerial incompetence and corruption, deliberate destruction of their rules and processes, has created an environment where those who have a career in politics, as Max Weber talked about, those who live for politics, are now saying that the only way for us to keep our job and our profession and our economic benefit is to tag on with a ruling party that's going to be very, very unabashed about manipulating INEC. So far, look at, this is not just theory, look at the appointments made so far into INEC since 2023. Very well-established partisans, chief of staff to Senate president, people like that. In the past, it used to be people recruited who seem to be civil society, but we corrupt them. Now, we are recruiting people who are partisans. And so by the time we announce the next INEC chairman, it might be no pretense as to a professorial profile. It's going to be slam dunk, maybe a career civil servant, retired, whose profile shows complicity with crime. So I'm really disheartened about what this means for democracy, and it doesn't look good.
Yes, indeed. It was Bola Ige, the great sage, that said 5 fingers of a leprous finger. Madam Jega, let me ask you very quickly, 30 seconds, if you can. How do we achieve ideology-driven politics? How can we bring that back? Very quickly.
The answer is I don't know how we can do that now, because honestly we started political party formation in this republic on a faulty foundation, and it has worsened since then, and I really cannot easily see how it can be rectified for now.
Wow.
It's only right to ask Dr. Sam Amadi the same question very quickly. What should we do to reverse this trend? Is it really a threat? What should we do going forward?
There's hope. We should bring together NLC, TUC, the people of Nigeria, the opposition parties. Let's form a mass movement, not to fight anybody, but to retrieve a simple proposition that if you don't perform, the people can remove you. If you don't recreate it, even the judiciary should be the ones incentivizing that process by nullifying wrong elections. You see, if you don't put that incentive back, that when you don't perform, the people can remove you, then we are done.
We'll have to leave it there. Dr. Sam Amadi, a rise analyst, and of course, Madam Mahmoud Jega, joining us on Newsnight tonight.